right. Welcome, everyone. Good to see you. I actually met friends during the Chuseok holidays when I was invited to Kwanse님's house, and then I'm surprised to see her showing up into our worship. You're welcome back. So today we are continuing our series in the book of Matthew. We came to a session that is famously known as the Sermon on the Mount, and we've gone through phase 1, phase 2, still within phase 3. And today, Jesus is going to take our attention to how we are supposed to react to worldly treasures and how we are supposed to control our anxieties based on the things that we live with. So today marks the first one, and today we will talk about heavenly treasures. So without much further ado, we have all heard this before, right? Shall we read it together? Get more, own more, secure more. Honestly, if you walk through the city of Gangnam, or even you look at the television advert, basically this is what they are advertising. Accumulate more, get more, make sure you have high standards, make sure you have the better education, make sure you can speak well, make sure you have the nicest body, make sure you can relate with people, and make sure you can gather a lot. And even in Korea, the pressure is so high for youth around my age that they have the demand to make sure that they can accumulate apartment sometime in life. But Jesus today will speak to us directly what really matters and what we are supposed to pay attention to. So without further much ado, today I have about only 15 minutes, so we will divide today's verses into 3 parts. The first one of which is earthly treasures. They are fragile. And then we will look at heavenly treasures, which are secure. And last but not the least, treasures determine where the heart is. So these are the 3 main things we will be looking at. Shall we read verse 19 together? Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where fleas break in and steal. Brothers and sisters, there are a lot going on here. First, if you look at the word translated, let's start from, if you look at the word translated do not here, the Greek expert says that it's the basic form of the word translated treasure. In other words, Jesus is sort of being a little bit poetic here. Do not treasure treasures. Again, do not treasure treasures, or do not accumulate treasure upon treasures. So Jesus is being a little bit poetic here, and he's saying that we shouldn't do that on earth. But this is where it gets a little bit tricky, where we have to look at it very carefully. He uses words like moth. Now, if you look at this word, it stands for all kinds of insects. It is not just one particular insect. It stands for all kinds of insects. And when I saw this, it got me thinking, why would Jesus talk that way? Jesus could have said that, he could have said where like political leaders would take your earthly materials, or where war can destroy your earthly materials, or where the Roman Empire controls, or the tax system controls. But why did he decide to talk this way? And one thing that came to me is that, we live in places, as humans, we always want to live in a very clean place, right? And if you know your basic science, we also believe that we have macroorganisms and microorganisms, right? The macros are the one that we can see with our eyes. And I can guarantee you, even if you live in Akro River, One Valley, which is very clean and nice, there are still microorganisms that you live with. So Jesus was starting from the smallest, that even if we live in a very clean place, he wants to bring our attention that even every little things that we have, because the world is falling, it is affected. to the extent that we might not even see with our eyes. Then he goes from the animal kingdom and talks about the weather. He talks about rust, right? Maybe 5 years ago, Akron River was the most trending apartment in the whole of Bangkok. But now, after some few years, it's now 1 billion, which is right behind us. So, Jesus is reminding us that the creation, how he made things, and after humanity falling, things will always depreciate. Things that are always new, at one point, they will begin to depreciate. Even if it's not microorganisms, or even if it's not animals, the weather itself can depreciate things. And last but not the least, he brings it into our human system. And again, watch carefully how Jesus talks. He says, he did not say where thieves will steal. He could have said that. But listen to how he said it. Thieves break in and steal. When I read this, for me, it also reminds us of the breaking in of sins into our world. When we did the Lord's Prayer, we learned about Satan. We learned about his role, an accuser, a destroyer. So many places in the Bible reminds us that he is in to steal, destroy. And even though here it might be taken like Jesus is talking about material things, but this goes to tell us the foundational problem humanity have with God. And that of which is that Satan has interfered with our obedience with him, and in the fundamental level, our system is being broken and it is being destroyed. And for that matter, even as people, as humans, before we come to Christ, we also steal. We also break in. Look at our hospital system. The hospital system, which is supposed to save life, has become a money-making industry. Yesterday when we had the Bible studies, Sundayworshipservice brought about a very controversial issue that is going on among Christians right now. How church members are so obsessed with stock market. You remember Professor Park also mentioned about using, if you are rich, you can control the stock market. Like, let's think of Elon Musk. If he decides to buy a very small company, he can use that company to control people's decision. And then people are, in our days, chasing after wealth. We are chasing for more. We want to have more resources. We want to get more. And we want to do it very fast and quickly. Now, before I came to Korea, when I graduated from college, I worked for 1 year. And before I came to Korea, I had saved some money, and then I decided to give some of the money to my parents and also put some of the money into bank to start a retirement plan. Now, if you listen to this, it was treasury bills. It wasn't even stock. It was treasury bills, which is a long-term investment plan. And I'm saying this to say that I don't want people to misunderstand this passage, that Jesus doesn't say we shouldn't save. He said we should save. But even with that, it's not guaranteed. Why do I say so? 3 or 4 years ago, the Ghana economy crashed. And I thought I was making progress, but I came back to stage 1, where I started from. The money that I have invested for the whole 5 years, the face value came back to what it was like 5 years ago. Even though this was not stock market, and I wasn't interested in making quick returns. This was something you can consider to be wise decision. And we all encourage our kids to save. We teach them with the money plan to save money. But even with that, the economic system breaks. And as I was preparing for this sermon, I came across the 1997 IMF crisis in Korea. And I know most of you heard about this. And perhaps, maybe your resources was affected. Your money was reduced back to inflation attacked your money and it returned back to the face value. Even though you might be doing a reasonable way of saving for the future. But these examples is to say that whether we make the right investments into our children, into our lives, into other people and everything, wanting to gain status or whatever it might be, all of this is not guaranteed because we live in a fallen world. All of this is not guaranteed because they will one day perish. I know we all want to live in the nicest apartment, but that is not everything. If we have time to reflect, we all have treasures that we hold on to. Jesus is reminding us, even if it is a safe treasure, and even if it is a greedy treasure, as most of our people are becoming right now, both of them are not safe. So this is what we are to do instead. Shall we read verse 20 together? But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. Treasures in heaven. Now, what is going on here? Jesus uses the same thing that can destroy earthly treasures to describe the heavenly treasures. So that is one step of understanding. And sometimes, back in the days when I read this, I rush over. But as a matter of fact, the word translated heaven here is so important. Heaven is the reason why moth and rust cannot destroy. Heaven is the reason why thieves cannot break in. Heaven is where the presence of God is. Heaven is where Jesus, right now, is seated at the right hand of the Father, interceding for us. Heaven is the place where Jesus came from to redeem us. It is the place where Jesus, God, is completely obeyed. Where there is no rebellion, where there is no sin, where there is no sickness, where there is no inflation, where there is no nuclear weapon and wars. Heaven might be for us something very abstract, but it shouldn't be so. Because the Bible makes it clear, Revelation makes it clear. As a matter of fact, Jesus, when he came, the theologians have this phrase that they use a lot already, but not yet. When Jesus came, he already brought heaven. Remember Mark chapter 10, verse 45. What does it say? The Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, to give his life as a ransom for many, so that we will be restored back to God. Jesus brought heaven down. Jesus brought life to our broken world so that through him we can see what really matters, what are the true treasures. So when you might be asking, just tell us what the heavenly treasures are. And that's what I'm telling you, it's Jesus. Jesus is the one who came to show us what really, really matters. And what that is to give his life so that we can live. That is the heavenly treasures. Heavenly treasures is when our lives are being laid down so that others can live. So brothers and sisters, when we think about our good works, when we think about the things we do from day to day, the question that should be at the center of our thought and our motivation is that, am I doing this because of what Christ did for me? Am I giving myself away to other people, my life away to other people for what Christ did for me. Now, before I came to start this news ministry, many of you know I was only doing the news kits, right? And I was asked to drop that ministry and take this one. But when I thought about the relationship I have with the kids, and the kids not wanting the ministry to close, and also personally from my own perspective and what I saw, how I see that God has used just a little bit of me to open some of the kids to your hearts to His Word, it was really hard for me to say no. Even though I could have just let it go and just focus on this one and have a lot of free time for myself. But I wanted to give my life to the kids. And needless to say, doing those ministries does not bring any financial benefit to me. But this is what we have been called to. And this is why most of the times I encourage all my dear Chipsanims and Kwanzanims and church leaders. This is what we have been called to lay down our lives for others. It is nothing more, nothing less. This is what Jesus did for us. So I know we might be very small. I always say this, and a few months ago I shared about some of the plans I want us to do starting next year. And I remember when we started this ministry back in December, I was always hoping that we can have a Bible studies going on, prayer meeting going on. The reason is to get us ready. The reason is to make sure we are even there for the ones God has given us right now to shepherd. As I say, my success of faithfulness in ministry is your reward. My dear mothers and sisters and brothers and fathers, I know we are busy with a lot of things, but among all our business, please let us remember God called you and me here to give our lives to others first. So please, let us always keep this at the back of our mind. Now on to the last verse. Shall we read it together? For where your treasure is, there your heart will also be. Now this verse reminds me of this Korean phrase. This is exactly what Jesus is saying, if I can put it in Korean simple words. This is true. If you invest all your money in the stock market, when you wake up, that is all that it matters to you. If all your heart is on your phone, when you wake up, that is all that it matters to you. If it is on your health, that will be all what it matters to you. If it is on your job, then it will be all what it matters to you. Even for pastors, if it is for just trying to preach and not really shepherding, that is all it will be for us. But again, back to verse 20. It is supposed to be on Christ. And by that, we are giving our lives so that others can live, others can see Christ. So I want to leave you with this question. What are you treasuring? Earthly possessions or eternal reward in Christ? What are you treasuring? Brothers and sisters, shall we pray?